And now, the Bible Yogi. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Bible Yogi. Today we'll be covering, we'll be beginning the story of Moses, the first superhero. If you kind of get my gist, Moses performed so many miracles and he saw the face of God as closely as any man that ever walked the face of the earth. So, if we were to just pretend for a moment that he was a Marvel comic book character, he would indeed be a superhero of the highest order. There were many iconic moments in the life of Moses. He was the baby in the basket. There's the burning bush. He was the man who asked God for his name and got the answer. He did a few miracles where he turned the staff into a snake. He had the leper's hand miracle. He was the one who called on the 10 plagues of Egypt. He implemented the Passover. They plundered the Egyptians. There's parting of the Red Sea, the pillar of the fire, pillar of cloud. He called for manna from heaven. That's where that expression comes from. The golden calf, the 10 Commandments, and finally the Levitical law. It's a pretty good resume. So let's begin the story of Moses, and it starts off with Pharaoh's charge to the midwives. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt which knew not Joseph. You guys remember Joseph from the book of Genesis. He was the one who literally saved the entire empire of Egypt through his interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams of the 14 years. 7 were going to be plentiful years, and then there were going to be 7 years of famine. And so because the Pharaoh recognized the wisdom in him, he put him over like all of the grain and all of the taxation and all that stuff, and he literally saved the world. So now a new king rises up, and he doesn't know who Joseph is, so therefore he's not sympathetic to Joseph's nation, the nation of the Israelites. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that, when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore did they set over them taskmasters, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. So this is key in the sense that now we know this is our beginning of the ability to date when all of this took place. When was Moses in the land of Egypt? And there's quite some controversy. I don't think that there is a pure consensus. And I'll probably do an entire video just discussing all that. Suffice it to say, they've got it narrowed down to 2 people. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And here I just wanted to verify that rigor does indeed just means that they put them to work. It's hard, no rest, no rest for the weary, so to speak. So they are really giving it to them. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives. And now, I don't know if this term is lost on today's generation or not, but these were women who helped other women give birth. And they just kind of took care of their comfort and helped clean the baby and just basically handled the process. My own wife gave birth to 3 of our 4 children with midwives in attendance. And so there you are, right? That's what they do. They watch over the birth. Of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the other name of the other was Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, I guess they sit on stools to give birth, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere before the midwives come in unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied, the Israelites, and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. Now, devotees of the channel will be familiar with the concept of foreshadowing messianic prophecies. I've sometimes referred to these prophecies simply as biblical types. That is, they provide a template for or foreshadowing of a future event, usually fulfilled in the life of Jesus Christ. Here, the foreshadowing is of the slaughter of the innocents, as recorded in the Gospel of Matthew. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth, angry, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So there you go. Now the birth of Moses was as this wise. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived, and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him for 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off, to wit that would be done to him, to witness. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. Had to take care of that phone beeping. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? Right? Because, women just aren't always lactating. You do need a nurse if you're not the woman who actually gave birth to the child. It's one of those biological miracles, And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. So that's a little bit of good fortune now, isn't it? And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. You can imagine what a blessing this is. Here's this woman who wanted to just hope for the best and put the baby in the basket and weave it on its way and whatever, right? Because they're going to kill it if they found it. And lo and behold, Pharaoh's daughter, of all people, finds the baby and then gives it back to her so she can nurse it. I mean, a little bit of crazy emotions. You know how I love to point out, put yourself in one of these Bible characters' shoes and try to, what would be going through your mind, right? I mean, so this woman just went through it. And there's a nice little Bing created image there. This made Moses the adopted grandson of Pharaoh. How about that, eh? Now, which Pharaoh was this? There were 2 main candidates, Thutmose III and Amenhotep II. These are just back to back. Thutmose III, and then handed the throne over Amenhotep. This is because of 1 Kings 6:1, and it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. This choice is because the chronology matches up with other archaeological sources. However, some scholars like to believe it's Ramses. Actually, this sequence. Ramses 1, then Seti 1, Ramses 2. So the pharaoh that's dealing with Moses would have been Ramses 2. And then Merneptah was the one following. So that's the lineage. This fits the Merneptah stele, which is the name of this document that you see before you. I don't know why it's called the stele. Maybe it was made out of iron. I didn't remember all that. But it's the first mention of the Israelites of being in the land of Canaan. And this document was dated to be 1208 BC. And there's a picture of it. So from Wikipedia, the text is largely an account of Merneptah's victory over the ancient Libyans and their allies, but the last 3 of the 28 lines deal with a separate campaign in Canaan, then part of Egypt's imperial possessions. Discovered in 1896 by Flinders Petrie in the ancient city of Thebes, first translated by Wilhelm Spiegelberg. Israel is laid waste. Merneptah was the 13th son of Ramses II, only coming to power because all of his older brothers had died, including his full brother Kamweset. Now this is why I thought this was the guy, because it makes sense that after the 10 plagues of Egypt, that whoever was the pharaoh during that, catastrophe, a lot of his family would have been killed. They would have been either in the army, they would have been officers of the army, and we know the firstborn of all Egypt was killed. So it makes sense that this Merneptah was the 13th son, and he was the only, offspring left to become pharaoh. I've since talked to an Egyptologist, if you will, kind of an amateur, but she's very, very knowledgeable, even went and studied in the land of Egypt, and she said, no, she liked Thutmose III. That was her guy. And so I'm like, okay, what do I know, right? But it's interesting how even Egyptian scholars disagree on all this stuff. It is kind of hard to see clearly through the thousands and thousands of years. Then back to Moses. Moses murders an Egyptian. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that. And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Pretty convenient that, you can just move sand around to bury dead bodies in. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews were strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smoutest thy fellow? And, trying to be the peacemaker here. He's called of God. He's got a certain calling on his life, and Moses is aware of this. He probably knows the circumstances around his birth. He's figuring, man, something divine's going on here. So he's trying to be the savior of his people. And he said, who made thee a prince and judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killedst the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. And when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, right? Here's Moses killing Egyptians. And what right does this Hebrew have to do that, right? But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. Now, of course, what? This is indeed covered in the movie The Ten Commandments by Cecil B. DeMille, starring Charlton Heston and Vivian Leigh. But seriously, what is going on here? It's like, yeah, I know, it's clearly a misguided effort to liberate his countrymen. And it also sets up, of course, a huge redemptive arc, literally. But it is interesting how a murderer becomes the most powerful prophet of the holy God. So that's about as big a redemption story as you can get. The same thing kind of occurred with Paul the Apostle. He says in his letters that he held the coats of those who were stoning Stephen. So that's how he participated. So he didn't throw a rock, but he certainly was, a cheerleader while it was all happening, right? So the Bible loves those kinds of themes, these redemptive arc themes, which really should give us all hope that no matter how much we've screwed up, God can still take us and make something of our lives for his glory. Moses gets married in Midian. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. He wasn't going to put up with a bunch of shepherds, harassing these women, so good for him. Doesn't say he killed him this time though, so he's learning, right? Now he's just giving the old what fors or something, right? And when they came to rule their father, he said, "How is it that you are come so soon today?" They're back from their little errand pretty quick. And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds." And apparently this was kind of known that these shepherds would harass these poor girls. "And also drew water enough for us and watered the flock." And he said unto his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? We can always use a nice strong man to help us out because we're always dealing with this kind of stuff. Call him that he may eat bread." And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. There you go. So, and she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a strange land." Now the king of Egypt dies, and it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. So here it's very clear that the Israelites have been enslaved by the kings of Egypt. And that's what all that forcing their labors with rigor, now it's getting even worse, right? The burning bush. Now this is where God gives Moses his commission, and God first speaks to Moses. Moses always had this inkling that he had some calling on his life. Here it is. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked and beheld, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed, as my little picture showed. And Moses said, "I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt." And there's the picture. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, he said, "Oh, okay, the guy's not a blithering idiot," right? He was aware that bushes are not supposed to just sit there and burn for no reason and then not get burnt up. God called him out of the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here am I." It's a good thing. Remember that. If God ever calls you, that's what you say. "Here am I," or "I am here," or whatever. But certainly something along those lines. And he said, "Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground." Moreover, he said, "I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Now, Jesus quoted this scripture in an argument with the scribes in the New Testament. Then came unto him the Sadducees, which say there is no resurrection, and they asked him, saying, Moses wrote unto us, Master, Moses wrote unto us, if a man's brother die, and leave his wife behind him, and leave no children, that his brother should take his wife, and raise up seed unto his brother. Now there were 7 brethren, and the first took a wife, and dying left no seed, and the second took her, and died, neither left he any seed, and the third likewise, and on they keep going. They're trying to be ridiculous, right? That's clearly it. I mean, the Levitical law wanted there not to be a widow, and if there's a brother able to take up, the widow to be his wife, then that's what God wanted to happen. He doesn't want to see widows starve or freeze to death, and that kind of thing. So he's making a very logical and practical provision for these widows. So here these Sadducees are trying to give Jesus a hard time about it because they don't believe in the resurrection anyway. In the resurrection, therefore, when they shall rise, whose wife shall she be then? For the 7 had her to wife. They got him now. Everybody loves a good gotcha, right? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Do ye not therefore err, because you know not the Scriptures, neither the power of God? For when they shall rise from the dead, they shall neither marry, nor are they given in marriage, but are as angels which are in heaven. And as touching the dead, that they rise, have ye not read in the book of Moses, how in the bush God spake unto him, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. Ye therefore do greatly err. So I love it. The question was disingenuous because they didn't even believe in the resurrection. Jesus answered them anyways, and Jesus quoted the Old Testament. So this interaction, I bring it up because it gives us, dumb Christians like myself, a way of answering these questions that people will come at you, especially if they're gotcha questions. I mean, I'm not smart enough. I really can't anticipate the perfect answer to every single question some non-believer comes to me. And my best bet is to draw from scriptures, from either the Old Testament or the New Testament. Say, well, thus it is written, and then boom, give it to them. But if you rely on your own, wits and understanding and knowledge, I mean, that's great. You should do that to fortify your own faith. Any question that you have, answer it to your satisfaction. Figure it out. Find the answer. But whether or not the answers that you have found are going to placate someone else's concerns, that's 50-50. We are here to work out our own salvation in fear and trembling. That's what we're doing. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land into a good land, and unto a land flowing with milk and honey. Have you ever heard that expression before? It makes you want to go try some, right? I mean, milk and honey sounds good. I like it on like just plain old uncooked oatmeal. Unto the place of the Canaanites. Unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. So here's a little bit of a nod to that the Merneptah stele that we just covered, right? Here's Canaan, here's the Israelites going to take over the land of Canaan, and the Merneptah and the Egyptians came up and certainly made war with them. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I've also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, When I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers hath sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And there you have it. God doesn't have a name per se. He just is. And that's what drives me bonkers when people like to say that, oh, Yahweh is his name. And it's actually just like some kind of an acronym from the Old Testament. No. No name. He's the Father, the Creator, the God over all. I am. And with that, I'm going to leave it there for today. Everyone out there, please take care.